Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Happy Moment. My name is Dan. Glad to have all of you with us today. I do have a very special guest with me. He is young adult author Tyler Snure. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here today. And we're going to be talking about some fantasy writing. Tyler is the author of two novels, The Jewels of Fate and The Sword of Sorinth. And Tyler, you kind of got started writing at a pretty young age, didn't you?
Yeah, so I was 17 when I published my first novel, The Jewels of Fate. I have a copy right here. It is a teen fiction fantasy series. And then after my first novel was published, 3 years later, I launched the second novel, The Sword of Sorinth.
Okay. Now, have you always been interested in writing?
Absolutely. Ever since I was about 7 years old, I knew I wanted to be a writer.
And was there anything in particular that drew you to the fantasy genre?
I would say it's the books that I read growing up. Um, I read Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, similar books like that, and they were so gripping and engaging, right? That I wanted to write a story like that myself one day.
Are you planning on continuing, like making a continuation of these books, or are you moving on to other projects?
Yeah, so the Jewels of Fate series is a trilogy. So I'm just wrapping up the third book now, and once that is done, that's the end of the series. But then I have some other books in mind that I'm gonna work on.
Okay. Would you like to give us a little bit of a synopsis as to what it's about?
My current series, it's
Yeah.
about a boy. He finds out his whole life's a lie. When teenagers start disappearing all over New York, he learns that magic is real, and there's a world called Echinacea that's full of it. And not only that, but he gets summoned by their queen to carry out a secret request.
Okay. Did you always plan on writing YA, or is that kind of just how it turned out to be?
Um, I would say I set out to write more teen fiction in the beginning because at that age I was a teenager. I would have been around 14, 15 when I started working on this novel. Um, and then slowly it kind of expanded into YA. And then when I launched, I found that I had both like more of a teenage audience as well as a YA audience as well as an adult audience. So it's pretty wide for in terms of audience.
Yeah, that's cool. Could you hold up that book again, please? Just want to take another
Yeah,
look at it.
absolutely.
Now, did
So
you
this is the
also
Jewels of
do
Fate.
the cover art yourself?
No, I can't take credit for the cover. A very close friend of mine, we've been friends for years, did the cover.
Okay. Uh,
Mhm.
Now tell us a little bit about the protagonist in your book.
Yeah, for sure. So the main character's name is Chuck Kingsley, and he is from our world, even though the book isn't set in our world. It starts in New York, and that's where he's from. And he's kind of doing his own thing, living life, and then all of a sudden, a series of events happen that make him realize that there's more to life than meets the eye, and you know, uh, his family has secrets they're not telling him, and all those things that eventually lead him to realize that there's this world called Echinacea, and it's full of magic, and the queen of this world needs him to come from New York into their world and compete in a competition. And this competition is for teenagers only, and it's designed to find the best of the best, who will then be sent off to go and fight an army of monsters.
Is the army of monsters like invading the country, or how do they fit
It's
in?
more, I would say, more like an uprising. They're already
Okay.
there, but they're kind of in secret. There's a lot of, political manipulation happening within the government of this kingdom, and eventually the monsters reveal themselves, and it's I would say it's not till the midpoint of the book that they really get revealed. They're more in secret at the beginning, but I would classify it more as an uprising. In the future books, it's more um, uh, like battle style kind of.
Like, can you describe the monsters a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So the main one is called an Ogla Turanta, and it's like this wolf creature, except its tail is a scorpion tail. So it's kind of well, the rest of its body is kind of hairy, like a wolf would be, but then the scorpion tail is kind of big and scaly, and obviously it has the pointer at the end, and that's the most dangerous part.
Sounds pretty creepy.
Very creepy, very creepy. I would not want to face one in real life.
Do you happen to have any artwork of one?
Um, Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I have character drawings of the characters, but I don't think I have one of the Ogla Taranta. But
Okay.
that's a good idea for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. You do have a website, snurestories.com. And I
Yes,
see that if people go there, there's a quiz they can take to find out what their field of magic is. Or
yes, yes.
is that all based off of your books?
Yes. So the Field of Magic quiz is a personality quiz that will tell you what character you're most like. So in the Jewels of Fate series, each of the characters is part of one of the five fields of magic. There is combat, which is you're really good with swords and bows and arrows and things like that. And then you have combat magic, which is you're good at spells and kind of fighting, with magic. And then you have elements, which is controlling nature and being able to communicate with animals. Then you have charms, which is all about illusion and secrecy, things like invisibility spells and confusion spells and all that kind of stuff. And then the last one is power of knowledge, and this is all knowledge based. So it's things like memory and how smart you are and things like that.
Okay. What's your field of magic?
I am combat magic, which surprised me. I sometimes joke about this on social media and in videos I do, but when I took the quiz myself, I did not expect that answer. I thought it would be something else.
Is that your favorite one then too?
Well, it's the so Chuck, the main character, he is part of combat magic, so it makes me feel kind of special because I'm most like the main character then.
Okay, cool. Now,
Mhm.
um, you mentioned having some other projects you were thinking about. Uh, Same genre, or are you gonna expand a little bit into something new?
I think for now I'm going to kind of stick with the same genre, different stories and different characters, but um, I really like fantasy and sci-fi. I might dive into a little bit of YA in the future because currently that's what I'm reading a lot of right now. Some of my favorite series are YA based. Um, so that's kind of got my attention right now.
Okay. Is there a difference between YA and teen fantasy? I kind of just lumped them in there
Yes.
together. Okay. Can you explain the
So some
difference?
authors lump them together. For my books, I think they appeal to both audiences. Whether you consider yourself more of a teen fantasy reader or a young adult fantasy reader. Generally speaking, the difference is in the content. So, young adult fantasy might have a bit more mature content. An example would be the Throne of Glass series. Definitely fantasy, but more I would consider young adult than teen. Whereas teen is more PG-13. Like there might be some violence, maybe a little bit of language, but it's not super huge. And for me, like my books, content wise, they're definitely more teen, but I don't use like foul language in my books. So they then appeal more to even a younger audience, like say 10 to 12, that are able to read them.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
Hmm.
Okay. 'Cause I know some of those YA books can include some pretty mature content, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Cool. Now, so your first novel was published when you were still in high school. When you were writing, is this something that you kind of kept a secret, or did you tell everyone about it?
So I when I wrote it as a short story, I kept it a secret. And the reason is because I didn't think it would become a novel at the time. Um, and then slowly, like the more I worked on it and the more it expanded, eventually it grew into a novel. And that's when I started thinking, I want to get this published. And that's when I started telling people.
Okay. And what was everyone's reaction when they found out?
They thought it was a really cool idea. A lot of my friends and family were super supportive, which was great. My parents especially were my biggest champions for sure. And in a lot of ways, they helped me. Like my mom, she edited the last few drafts of both my novels, um, and the formatting, all of that, which I still don't fully understand, even though I've been through the process twice. I really couldn't answer any questions on how Amazon formats the books because it still goes over my head.
Do you have any other authors in the family?
Yeah, so my mom, she published a children's book when my sister was born, which was 18 years ago.
Okay, very cool. Now, um, how about your teachers? Did you have a lot of good feedback from them? Like, did you rely on them at all to get feedback?
Yeah, so when I was in grade 12, that was right after my first book launched. And I actually did my culminating project in my grade 12 English class on my books. I did kind of like a marketing strategy, and how I would, start to market and promote my books. And I did all of that through my grade 12 English class. And my teacher was super supportive, and she's bought both my books, and I've actually presented to her class years later. So it's really cool to have that support from teachers, and still be in contact with them even after you've left high school.
Yeah, very cool. Do you have any other plans for this series as far as I don't know, maybe like a graphic novel or anything of that sort?
I've thought about a graphic novel. Um, it's not something I'm actively thinking about right now. It's more on the back burner. I um, I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Um,
That'd be a big step, wouldn't it?
yeah, it would be. It'd be very different, especially since um, like I'm not an artist and I don't have an eye for art. As my amazing illustrator will probably tell you. So a graphic novel seems like a very big step that I'm not ready to take quite yet,
Sure.
due to my lack of artistic ability.
Are you planning on making writing a full time career, or do you have other plans for a career path?
Absolutely, yeah, this is what I want to do. I really don't see anything else that I would want to do that I would love as much as this. However, I am also a screenwriter, and I do love writing movies as well because I'm a huge movie buff. But I kind of lump them together in the same kind of career bracket. Like they're both writing. But yeah, I've also dabbled in screenwriting a little bit.
Okay, what kind of screenwriting have you done?
So what I'm working on right now is a murder mystery thriller. So completely different genre from my books. Um, but something I'm super excited about as well.
Okay. Have you gotten to the point where you've like actually pitched any of your projects to anyone?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to speak with a few producers over the last 2 years since I've been working on this. And actually, this also started when I was in high school too, in the same class. Um, my grade 12 English teacher also had a grade 12 writer's craft class, and that's when I started working on this screenplay. Um, yeah, and it's just kind of coming to fruition now.
That's awesome. It
Hmm.
sounds like you've got a lot of fun stuff going on for you.
A lot of fun stuff happening for sure.
uh, are you also a fan of fantasy movies?
Yeah, absolutely. I have binged the Harry Potter series I don't know how many times. Um, yeah, anything like that I enjoy. I will say though, some of my friends make fun of me that I still haven't seen the Lord of the Ring movies. It's on my bucket list, but I haven't made it there yet. But other than that, I'm pretty good with fantasy movies.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely recommend the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That was a pretty fun one. Um,
Hmm.
are you a fan of like older movies too? Like going back to like Jason and the Argonauts or Clash of the Titans?
I have not seen those
Oh, okay. If you have a chance, I'd recommend them.
for sure. For
But,
sure,
but,
I'll add them to the list.
but yeah, I know you've got a busy schedule, but if you have time,
Mhm.
are you much of a gamer at all?
Um, Not as much as I used to be. When I was a kid, I loved Minecraft. That was my game. Um, and I played a little bit of like the Mario Kart and the Smash Bros. And games like that. And of course, the classics like Wii Sports. Um, Other than that, I haven't really been much of a gamer.
Okay. Oh, so since you mentioned that you're a fan of Harry Potter, how do you feel about the movies versus the books?
Ooh. Um, I think the movies are good, not as good as the books, but still watchable. Like I watch them and I enjoy them, and I think they're a pretty good depiction of what happens in the books. Um, Now, Percy Jackson, on the other hand, that's a whole different story. It's like movies versus books. Um, yeah, I would say not a fan of the Percy Jackson movies in compared to the books. Whereas, like if we're talking Harry Potter, both of them are pretty good.
Okay. Do you think that if someone's making a movie based off of a book, they should try and remain as faithful as possible to the books, or is it good for them to try and put their own spin on it?
I think there's a way you can do both, because obviously movies are a different way to tell the same story. So obviously it's going to look different, from page to screen. However, in terms of plot, I think it's crucial to stick with the story. Like if the movie has a bunch of characters and scenes that are not in the book, then I think that's an issue. But if a movie can tell the same like part of a story in a different way, like visually, then I think it's good.
Okay, makes sense. Now,
Mhm.
are are there any fantasy movies you can think of that also have a book then where you like the movie better than the book?
Where I like the movie better than the book. Um, I would say, hmm, yeah, this example isn't really fantasy; it's more sci-fi.
Sure.
Um, but the Hunger Games series,
Okay.
I think I find the second movie is really good compared to the book. Um, in some parts, like I maybe this was because I read the series like 7 or 8 years ago now, but I found the second book was really hard to get through. But when I watched the movie, like the Catching Fire movie, I loved it. I was so into it.
Okay, I actually haven't read any of those books. I watched the first movie, thought it was all right, but not
Mhm.
really enough to keep going with the series, you know?
That's fair.
Yeah. Tyler, so you mentioned that you also you speak at various conferences and summits. Do you give presentations on writing?
Absolutely. Yeah, my topics vary depending on who I'm speaking to and kind of what grade level. But I have a number of presentations that I give that talk about writing. It talks about kind of my journey writing a book as a teenager in high school, um, and also during the COVID pandemic, which greatly impacted how I marketed my books, how I sold books, all of that. But I also have a presentation on entrepreneurship and business, because writing is a business. Um, and then I have an not an entrepreneurship presentation, a reading presentation that's more geared towards younger kids, like grades 4 to 6, and that is not so much to teach about writing, but kind of the importance of reading and the benefits of reading, and why kids should pick up a book.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a good topic. It's important to get kids reading at a young
Mhm.
age. Now, how did how did all of that get started? Did someone approach you about doing this, or did you have the idea to start speaking?
Um, Well, like I mentioned before, my old high school kind of brought me in to do some presentations. And then I thought I love to share my story with other schools and other groups. So I kind of brainstormed like what topics schools and libraries and organizations like that would be looking for. Um, and I came up with a list of 4 or 5 presentations, depending on the age range. And then I started reaching out and, booking myself at conferences and online summits and in schools.
Okay, that's cool. Now, can you explain a little bit about how your writing process works exactly?
For sure. So my first novel, it took me 5 years to write. Um, I'm a bit of a slow writer. I like to take my time. So my process is I start with an outline. I'm a big advocate for outlining, which a lot of my social media videos are touch on that a little bit. I start with the outline, and my rule with the outline is to work it until it's done. So I don't move on to the actual writing until I'm confident in the outline that it's a solid story. It has all of the scenes that I want. It flows nicely, all of that. And then once that is done, I move on to the writing. And generally, that can take 1 to 2 years even to get a good draft done. The first draft, at least. And then I move on to editing. I do the first few edits myself, and then I pass them over to my mom, who has a background in editing. She does the final few drafts. And then after that, it's just a matter of formatting and uploading on Amazon. And then, of course, the launch and the book marketing that comes with that.
Okay, I like to write, but I struggle doing outlines. I don't think I have the patience for it. Would you consider yourself to be a patient person?
Ooh, I don't know if I'd call myself patient. I use outlines, but I don't know if that means I'm patient.
No, I suppose it probably means you just have a good plan. You're,
I try to, at least.
yeah, yeah. I'm a pantser, and it hasn't gotten me anywhere yet. So maybe I should try doing outlines more.
Hey, I know lots of pantsers, and it seems to be working for them just fine.
Okay. What would you say is the most your favorite and your least favorite aspect of writing?
Um, my favorite is um, the planning and the outlining, um, and writing the first few drafts. There comes a point where I'm writing and I just want the book to be done, and that's when the impatient part of me comes up. I'll be at chapter 18 out of 20, and I just want this book finished so I can move on. But in the early stages, when it's kind of fresh and a new story, and I'm thinking about all these ways I can surprise readers, and what wouldn't they expect? What wouldn't they see coming? Like I love thinking up that kind of stuff.
Okay. Now, um, do you have preference as far as pen and paper or computer?
So I write all my books on my computer now. When I was younger, I used to write stories by hand, um, and I don't know. I don't know how my hands survived that because I would write these like 20-page stories all using a pencil. Um, yeah, I don't know why I did that. But now that I'm smarter, I use my computer. Although saying that, there are lots of writers that still write with, pen and paper or pencil, and apparently there's science behind that. It actually makes you more creative. Um, that for whatever reason, like the words flow better. So I've always admired poetry that's written by hand, and it sounds so poetic and flowery um, so I guess different methods work for different people.
Yeah.
But personally, I prefer computer now.
Do you have like a writing group that you're part of that helps you out a little bit, or are you just a solo writer?
Yeah, so um, I am a part of a writing group through my church. So my church hosts a writing group that meets once a month, and it's just authors in the community that come together um, and talk about what books they're writing. And different book writing strategies and book marketing strategies. Um, Other than that, that's the only writing group I'm a part of.
Okay. Do you have any sort of writing routines? Like you have to have like a cup of coffee, or you have to have your like favorite slippers on, or
Ooh, I would say I write. Uh, my writing routine is in the morning, so I'm not much of a night writer. I find the ideas flow and the words flow better in the morning. So my sweet spot is like 9 to 11. Um, I'm not a huge coffee drinker. Um, Actually, I'm not a coffee drinker at all, um, or any caffeine actually. So that's really not part of my routine. I will say I prefer writing at my desk because it's quiet. There's less distractions. But sometimes I'll like to write in a coffee shop, or at my university, or different places. But I'd say 99% of the time I'm stuck here at my writing desk.
okay. Sometimes it can be helpful to, like you said, write at a coffee shop just so you can view people and maybe
Mhm.
pick up some ideas for characters and whatnot. Just change of scenery can
Mhm.
be good. Do you like putting people that
Exactly.
do you like putting people that you meet in your books? Have you ever done that?
Mhm. Um, okay, people ask me this all the time if I, intentionally put people that I know in real life in my books. Um, I will say no. However, it has slipped in there unintentionally.
Sure.
So some characters, like my friends and family, will read and they'll be like, "This character sounds a lot like Uncle so and so," or Aunt so and so. And that's not intentional. It is completely accidental. But it's human nature, right? Characters are obviously at least somewhat based off of real people.
Okay. Uh, your main character, uh, Chuck, is he based off of you at all?
Not intentionally, but my parents have told me that apparently we share a lot of the same qualities. I don't see it, but apparently everyone else does. So could be.
Okay. Was did you draw a lot of for Chuck? Did you draw a lot of inspiration from Harry Potter for that?
Not so much the characters. I would say the characters in my book are um, really just from my head. Like it's hard for me to pinpoint, what exactly inspired the characters. Maybe it was a combination of different series that I read, like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Hunger Games. Like there's many different books I was reading at the time when I first started writing the Jewels of Fate. So there's a chance it could be a combination of all of them.
Okay. What kind of advice might you have for someone that's interested in getting started in writing?
I would say don't let your age stop you. So there's this huge misconception, and I touch on this in a few of the presentations that I give. there's this misconception that you have to wait until you're older to become a writer or you know, pursue any job you want. And in some cases, it's true. But in the case of a writer, it's not true. You can start at any age. And I published my first book at 17, which means that anyone can publish a book at 17 if they really want to. Or, um, you know, if you're, you know, older and retired and you want to write a book, once again, like completely possible. Um, and there's many resources out there. Like the nice thing about the internet is there's so much help now, um, and advice. Some of it can be confusing, but there is no shortage of advice on the internet. So if you are a writer, or you want to be a writer, I would say first step is read for sure. Read as much as you can, and then just practice your craft. Write every day, join writers groups, learn from other authors who have written books before you, and eventually you will see a finished book completed if you work at it long enough.
Okay. Do you have anything that you do specifically to deal with writer's block, or do you not believe in writer's block?
Ooh, I believe in writer's block. I've had
Okay.
writer's block before, but um, I work with word counts. So every day when I write, I try and hit a certain word count, and sometimes it fluctuates depending on how much time I have that day. Like if I only have 15 minutes, the word count might be lower. If I have an extra hour, it might be higher. Or if I'm feeling like really good about the story. But I always have a word count that I try and hit. And kind of that's my metric, even if I'm struggling with the story. And there are times when I'm writing and I look at it and it sounds like complete garbage, but I still write it because I know I can edit it later. And, I give myself a pat on my back because I hit my word count for the day. And that means I'm so many words closer to, the end of the story, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I hear a lot of writers talk about that, about how when you're writing, you don't want to edit because that you're gonna get bogged down if you keep editing while you're writing. So you just want to kind of just get the words down,
Mhm.
and that's the important thing, isn't it? You can always go back later and change it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I used to edit a lot when I was younger, and then I forced myself to stop and wait until the whole first draft is done before I go into editing. Otherwise, it just takes forever to finish that first draft.
Mm-hmm. Do you listen to music while you write?
No, no, that works for a lot of other writers, but now I find music distracts me. Like I enjoy music, but like I can't be working and have music, playing at the same time.
Okay, no, that makes sense. What kind of music are you into
Mhm.
though?
Um, I'm an everything kind of guy. Um, Honestly, I'm a big radio guy, which not a lot of guys my age listen to the radio. But there's a lot of good stuff on there. Um, mhm.
I guess it depends on where you live.
Yeah.
Are you in like a bigger city?
So I am from St. Catharines, Ontario, which is about 20 minutes from Niagara Falls. I'd say we're a medium-sized city.
Okay.
Like the closest mega city to us would be Toronto, and we're about maybe one third the size of Toronto.
Okay, so it sounds like you probably got some options there then.
Hmm.
Okay. I live in a smaller city and it's basically country, pop, or classic rock, and those are your options.
Okay.
So,
Okay. That's very limited.
yeah, so I usually got Spotify playing, but Tyler, um, what's the name of the third book in your trilogy?
I can't say yet.
Oh,
I always
okay,
keep my books under wraps until they're released.
sure. Do you have a potential release date yet?
I'm looking at next summer, hopefully around August 2025. Um, so maybe if you're listening to this podcast episode, and it's past August 25, it could be released by now. But that's what I'm aiming for, like late summer of 2025.
Okay. Other than writing, do you have hobbies?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a huge runner. I run 3 to 4 times a week. I go to the gym a lot. Um, I'm a huge foodie. I love to cook. Um, and I love to eat food too, different kinds of food, go to restaurants, all of that. Like I mentioned before, I love movies. So I read a lot, but I also watch a lot of movies. Um, yeah, big into amusement parks. That's something I love to do too. I try and go to Canada's Wonderland, which is the closest amusement park to where I am, in just past Toronto.
Okay. Uh, you mentioned cooking. Are you a good cook?
Ooh, I don't know about that. I feel like my parents would give you a different answer from my answer. I think I'm a good cook. They might tell you differently.
Do you have like a signature dish?
Ooh, my signature dish is probably pasta because I cook the most and it's easy to make. But I do love cooking salmon and rice. Um, like I some pan seared salmon. I love cooking salmon.
Oh, when are you part of the like track team in school?
I did cross country in high school.
Okay. Do you find that running it helps you come up with new ideas?
Um, Not during the run. Um, I would say during the run, all I can think about is how I want the run to be over, and then when the run is over, then the ideas come.
Okay. You don't, so when you're running, you don't carry around like a little pad of paper and a pen with you.
No, no.
Tyler, as I mentioned, the website is snurestories.com, and people can go
Mhm.
there, take the quiz, and I believe they can also order your books through that website as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my books are sold on Amazon, but my website will take you to my Amazon page where you can then buy the books.
Okay. Do you have any social media handles that you like to use?
Yeah, absolutely. So my handle is Snure Stories. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter/X, YouTube, and my latest is TikTok now.
Okay. Now, what kind of videos do you have on your YouTube channel?
I'm just getting my YouTube channel going at the time this podcast was released. So I have a trailer for my first book. Then I have an FAQ for my series. So I answer the most common questions I get about the books. Who are they for? What are they about? What kind of tropes are in them? That kind of thing. Um, and I plan on posting more videos about how to write and a bit about the presentations that I offer in the quiz and kind of what I do outside of the books within my little book business. Um, yeah.
Okay. Well, since you mentioned tropes, how do you feel about tropes? Like, are you a fan of using them or do you try to avoid them?
Um, I think, well, if you didn't have tropes in your book, then like you can't call a fantasy book if there's no fantasy tropes. Same with mystery. Like you can't have a mystery, without the who done it or the twist or the victim or the killer. Like there's so many tropes that just need to be in the book. I feel like some can be overdone and overused. And if you read a book and it feels exactly the same as another book you read, then there's an issue with the tropes and how they're used. But yeah, I think they're a necessity in genre and in books. And I have them in my books.
Do you have a favorite one that you like to use?
Ooh, I'd have to think about that one. I would say, well, the tropes that are in my books are found family, ancient secrets, love triangle, um, the hero's journey, as well as a bunch of others. Um, I would say my favorite probably is Ancient Secrets,
Okay.
because I'm all about twists and turns and making the reader surprised. So I love secrets in my books.
Okay. All right. Tyler, last question. What can people expect when they read your books?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can expect all the tropes that I just previously mentioned. Um, you can expect a teen fantasy adventure that is geared towards teens and young adults, but also available for 9, 10, 11 year olds, like a younger audience as well. Um, yeah, if you love magic, mystery, monsters, teen protagonists, then yeah, give the Jewels of Fate series a try.
Okay. Very cool. Once again, everybody, teen fantasy author Tyler Snure. Tyler, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, awesome. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about my podcast, you can look me up on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. No longer Twitter. I've given that the boot. I'm trying out Blue Sky. So we'll see how that goes. And I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.